Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to another compelling program where we look at important public policy issues. We kick off once again with our good friend Tom Bergeron, the editor and owner of ROI-NJ, one of our media partners. You'll see their website up throughout this segment. Hey, Tom, we're starting this series called Democracy at a Crossroads. Sounds abstract, philosophical, theoretical, but it's not. The question really is, in my mind, in the minds of many, in the post-election of 2020, Washington and here in New Jersey, how is democracy functioning and getting things done versus some other thing going on that's really not very productive?
Well, in a lot of ways, democracy isn't getting done. I mean, the two parties are split like ever before. I think you see that playing out in a number of ways. You know, one of the key things to think about is to start the conversation, you have to say this: both sides do it. So no matter who has the upper hand, who's in charge, who's not in charge, it's the same arguments that go back and forth. It's almost laughable when you look at it. So start by not letting anyone take the moral high road will help. And then we have to find ways to bring people together. And I think there's different ways to do that, but it all goes down to voting in the elections.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because whether it's ROI or any of the other media or digital informational platforms in the state of New Jersey, helping us understand the legitimacy or believing in the legitimacy of elections and voting, vote by mail, et cetera. That's huge, Tom. If we don't believe in elections and voting, then, and I'm not trying to be negative, but what are we talking about if one guy wins, another woman wins? No, we didn't win. It's not really real. Then why would people continue to have trust in voting?
Yeah, and look, this goes back to what I was saying, where both sides do it. And I have,
what's the it? Tom, I keep saying it. They both do it.
Well, they both question, they both use the same arguments, they both use to try to take the same one-upmanship and the same higher ground. Look, I have no dog in the fight, but take a look at
Same here.
Trump right now, not in any way being interested in recognizing the fact that he lost the election. Disgraceful, bad for democracy, bad for everything involved. That being said, his side will say, well, look, they did it to me. People constantly questioned whether he won and whether, and when people bring up the overall vote on, well, you didn't win the vote total, you won the electoral college vote. Well, yeah, okay, that's great. But my argument back and forth, and again, I have no argument on whether we should use the electoral college or not, but we do. So when someone argues that someone didn't win the popular vote, I say that's like a baseball game and saying at the end of the game, we're gonna declare the winner because I had more hits than you. No, you win by who gets the most runs. In the presidential election, you win by the electoral college. Everybody knew the rules going in, so why would you try to delegitimize it afterwards?
So we're taping on December the 8th that we've seen after that. So go back to New Jersey. There are a lot of New Jersey Republicans, Jack Ciattarelli, former Governor Tom Kean, who I have great respect for, Senator Tom Kean, and a range of other Republicans. As we tape this program, I don't know, they don't seem to be recognizing Joe Biden as the person who's going to be president. These are credible Republicans. Here's my question. It's not political. It's more policy and about democracy. If credible Republicans whom we respect don't acknowledge who wins the election, then what happened? Then where is the far right and the people who really believe in Trump in the effort to come together and move forward and solve our problems, whether coronavirus, infrastructure, energy, climate change, et cetera?
Well, look, first you have to reshape the question is what I would say.
What do you mean?
Don't say whether somebody is going to legitimize a result or credible or this and that. The answer, the grounding background reason for every decision that comes out of a politician's mouth is what's going to help me win the next election, what's going to help me feed my base. So you start with that idea, and it's not so much that one side is trying to delegitimize the other side. It's what do I need to do to increase my base? You've seen the studies coming out. I think the Washington Post did it last week, where they asked every Republican official who won the presidential election, and a very small percentage would admit that Joe Biden won. Now, again, they're only doing this because they're appealing to what their base and what they think it is. And that's one of the problems is nobody wants to compromise. Nobody wants to come together. There's no Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan. There's no Newt Gingrich, Bill Clinton anymore. It's one side has to bury the other. And whenever you have extreme rule on one side, things don't work well. I mean, that's the way the country was set up 250 years ago.
Bring it back closer home in New Jersey. Is New Jersey different with Governor Murphy, a Democrat, Steve Sweeney, a Democrat, different kind of Democrat, Craig Coughlin, the Speaker of the House, Speaker of the Assembly? Is there less gridlock and more cooperation to get things done? And is democracy working better, representative democracy in New Jersey? Go ahead.
Let me ask you this question. So Murphy's been in office for 3 years, and in the year prior to coming into office, he stated how he wanted medical marijuana and cannabis and recreational use to come to the state, something that the state is overwhelmingly in favor of, something that his party is overwhelmingly in favor of. Yet here we are 3 to 4 years later, and they're just now reaching the end zone on getting a policy in. And they, quote unquote, control everything, right? They have the assembly, they have the Senate, they have the governor. But
Democrats.
The Democrats do. But they still can't get to the finish line. And this leads to the idea of when you have too much power, when there's not a check and balance, you're actually, I think, you're paralyzed and you can't get as much done, because when you have to compromise, as Christie had to do with Sweeney, more can get done, because now you can go back to your group and say, look, we got A and B, but we didn't get C. But this is what we had to do to get it done. And right now the Democrats can't do that.
Final question before I let you go. The role of those of us in media, particularly local New Jersey-based regional media, what is our role in helping, quote, democracy function more effectively and holding our elected officials accountable?
Look,
particularly ROI.
The biggest thing that we can do is give a voice to a lot of different opinions. Now, it doesn't mean you have to give a voice to every opinion and crackpots on both sides, right? Because then you're giving them a little too much legitimacy. And that's where we get into trouble on when we get to make that decision. But you have to do your best to balance, to get a Republican, to get a Democrat, to get someone who wants to raise taxes, to get someone who wants to lower taxes. Let them express and let them go with it, and try to let the viewer decide and see all the information. We get to be gatekeepers. It's just the way it works. We try to keep it straight and narrow, but we ultimately have to make decisions. The ability for us to let as many people into the party and as many views there will ultimately help democracy.
By the way, check out ROI to find out down the middle, no horse in the race, no bias, if you will. Tom's not expressing his view unless he's writing an editorial and he tells you that. He's the owner and he's the editor, Tom Bergeron of ROI-NJ, to disclose one of our media partners. Tom, thank you so much for a compelling conversation again. Check in with you soon.
I appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Happy holidays.
Same to you. They were taping right before the holidays. You'll see it after. I'm Steve Adubato. We'll be right back.
Think Tank with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Reimagine Childcare, PNC, Grow Up Great, New Jersey Sharing Network, Seton Hall University, Valley Bank, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, Johnson & Johnson, United Airlines, and by ADP. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network, and by Jaffe Communications.
This is the Seton Hall story, one that comes to life every day on our campus. This is the place where great minds discover, innovate, collaborate, and find their true calling. This is the place where passion has a purpose, where learning inspires leading. The bonds we make, the values we teach, inspire our community to take heart and take action. This is Seton Hall University. This is what great minds can do.